highway towards Sita's quarters, praised by the many Brahmins who lined the road. Sita still had not heard the news of Rama's impending exile and was eagerly awaiting him. Sita, her mind absorbed in thoughts of his installation. As her husband entered the room, she sprang from her seat. Ram had left Lakshman outside and had gone along to speak with Sita. He was perplexed as he considered how to tell his wife the terrible news, although striving to control his mind and contain his grief. Rama's face was a pained expression and his head hung low. Sita was astonished to see him in that state, his face pale and bathed in perspiration apprehensively. Sita inquired, "What troubles you, my lord? Today is the auspicious and joyful day of your installation as a king, but you seem to be covered by the dark shadow of grief." Mother Sita asked Ram why he was not accompanied by the royal servants. Carrying the white umbrella, why was he not wearing a regal dress or anointed with sandalwood pastes after having gone through the inaugural ceremony? Where was the king and his ministers? What was happening? Ram steadied his mind and looked upon Sita's face. "My worshipable father has ordered me to enter the forest for 14 years, exile, O most beautiful Princess Sita. According to KK's desire, my brother Bharat will be installed in my place instead. In days gone by, 2 boons were granted to KK by my ever-truthful father. She has recalled the king's death now and placed him under his ward to send me away, conferring the office of Prince Regent upon the noble Bharata. In obedience to morality, I shall therefore depart forthwith to the forest. I have come to see you on my way." Mother Sita shook like a tree caught in a gale. "How could this be true?" she said. She listened with astonishment as Ram continued, "O high-minded lady," Ram said, "please remain firm. In my absence, you should take to fasts and prayers, remaining disciplined at all times. Worship and serve my father and mother, who are both grieving deeply due to my separation from them. Sumitra and KK should also be served by you, as should Bharat and Satrughna, who are both as dear to me as my own self. Be especially careful not to praise me before Bharata, for men endowed with power and wealth cannot tolerate hearing others praised. Indeed, Bharata will be the king and should therefore be served by you with all attention. Therefore, carefully avoiding any offense." Sita was dumbfounded. She turned pale and her eyes opened wide. She knew without doubt that Ram meant what he had said. The princess listened in horror as he instructed her. Ram told her to remain living peaceful in Ayodhya under the protection of the emperor and Bharata, devoting herself to righteousness and religion. Ram himself would leave immediately for the forest. After hearing Ram speak, the noble Sita became indignant out of her love for her husband. Her cheeks flushed red and she replied angrily, "How have you uttered such words today, O Lord? They are never worthy of one possessed of strength and weapons, who is capable of affording protection to the weak. Your advice is not worth hearing." Considering Ram as her only refuge, Sita spoke strongly. She described how the father, mother, brother, or any other relation were never the shelter of a chaste woman with a husband. The wife should share her husband's fortune under all circumstances. She stood in front of Ram, her eyes flashing as she continued, "I am enjoined by ancient religious codes to enter the forest along with you. Dearest Ram, I cannot possibly remain in Ayodhya. If you leave today for the forest, I shall walk before you, clearing away the sharp grasses and thorns on the path. Mother Sita assured Ram that he could take her anywhere with confidence. She would live happily under his protection and would prefer forest life with him to residence in the richest palace or even heaven itself without him. She had been trained in all the arts of service and was well prepared to accompany Ram. I need no further advice, O Lord. Simply order me to depart, remaining with you in fragrant woodlands. I shall be as happy as I am now living in your palace. Sita felt pained that Ram had not considered taking her with him. Raised in a line of warrior kings, the princess was not easily disturbed by difficulty. Again and again, she exhorted her husband to take her to the forest. Certainly, you are capable of guiding me from any danger. Indeed, none other can guard me as you can, Ram, nor is their sacred duty. Nor is it their sacred duty. I shall therefore go with you today. This is my fixed determination. Sita was fond of the country. She imagined herself alone with Ram and amid beautiful mountains, woods, and lakes. Even if it was austere, she would nevertheless prefer thousands of years spent with her husband in this way than a single day without him. She spoke her deepest feelings. I shall enter the forest at your feet. I am exclusively devoted to you. My mind is ever attached to you, and I am determined to die if disunited from you. Therefore, grant my prayer and take me with you today. Ram considered the difficulty of living in the forest, and he did not feel at all inclined to take Mother Sita with him. He spoke gently to his dear wife, who had buried her face in her hands and was sobbing. My dearest Lady Sita, you are born of a noble line and are always devoted to virtue. Practice that virtue and appease my mind, for I cannot bear to see you suffer. I shall now give you advice meant only for your good. Frail Sita, not only is there no joy in the fearful forest, but it is always fraught with misery. Simply by taking you there, I would be neglecting my duty to protect you. Ram described the forest where he had gone many times for hunting expeditions. There were numerous lions and other fierce beasts. Marshes and rivers abounded in crocodiles and other fierce aquatics. The forest paths were rugged and often impassable. Innumerable thorny trees and stinging bushes made traveling difficult. Sharp grasses grew everywhere. Hornets, gnats, scorpions, spiders, and mosquitoes were always present, along with the snakes and serpents of every kind. In the deep forest, the darkness was dense. Furious winds often blew, lashing a traveler's face with debris. Ram was determined to dissuade the gentle Sita from following him. Exhausted after searching all day for food, one must lie down at night upon beds of dry leaves. Baths must be taken in lonely lakes, which are the abode of serpents. By day and night, the terrible pangs of hunger can be appeased only by one's mind, for food is scarce. O princess, one is subjected to all kinds of illnesses and mental anguish. Anger, greed, and fear must be completely controlled. A forest is certainly a place of terrible suffering. Therefore, give up this idea of following me there. It is not a secure place for one such as you. Sita's determination remained unshaken. All these dangers will be as nothing to me if I am able to remain by your side. I will in any event have no fear whatsoever with you as my protector. Even Indra will not be able to harm me when you are with me. What then of mere beasts? You have always instructed me that a wife can never be independent from her husband, O Rama. Indeed, she is half of his very self. How then can I not accompany you? Sita remembered how when she was a young girl, an astrologer had predicted that she would one day have to live in the forest. Surely that time had arrived. She continued to plead with Ram. Was this not an opportunity for her to fulfill her religious duty by following him to the forests? Would not any other cause be against virtue? The husband was the wife's supreme deity. Sita quoted the scriptures. A chaste woman who remained throughout life by her husband's side surely attained the same destination as him after death. That was her only desire, to be with Ram always, looking into Ram's eyes. She spoke in a piteous voice, For what reason then, O great hero, will you leave me behind? I, who am devoted and faithful, who shares alike your every pleasure and pain, and who desires to follow the religious path, you should certainly bring me with you. Otherwise, being sorely afflicted, I shall resort to poison, fire, or water in order to bring about my end. Although Mother Sita's lamentations hurt him, Ram did not relent. He tried to pacify and reassure her, but she only became all the more determined to accompany Ram in the forest. Agitated at the thought of separation from her husband, she taunted him. Has my father Janak Maharaj from Mithila obtained as my protector a woman in the form of a man? How, in your absence, could I tolerate the people falsely saying, It seems that his strength and valor are lacking in Ram? As he could not protect his own dear wife, Sita, what fear has assailed you that you now desire to desert me? Although I remain entirely devoted to you, I will not cast my eyes on another man even in thought. How then can you even consider delivering me for protection to another, O my Lord? Sita continued to beseech Ram. She had no intention of remaining behind without him under any circumstances. Be it heaven or hell, she could only be happy by her husband's side. Sita gazed imploringly at Ram as she begged him to take her with him. Ram was agonized by the thought of leaving behind his beloved wife. He would miss her still. He feared her suffering in the forest. His heart ached, and she cried out to him, Without you, heaven would be exactly as hell to me, while with you, hell would be the best of all abodes. How can I remain here under the control of those who are inimical to you and have sent you to the forests? If I must watch you live without me, then I shall drink poison this very day. I cannot bear the pain of separation from you for even an hour. How then shall I stand it for 14 years? Take me with you, or let me give up my life here and now in your presence. Sita's beautiful face was streaked with the tears which fell continuously from her dark eyes like drops of water from blue lotus flowers. Ram embraced her and gently wiped away her tears. He was still apprehensive about taking her, but he could not see her endure the pain of his separation. She was already almost senseless from grief, and he had not even left. What would happen to her during 14 years of his absence? Making up his mind to take her with him, he spoke to her reassuringly. I would find no pleasure even in heaven if I obtain it at the cost of your suffering, O most pious lady. Not knowing your real feelings and being afraid that forest life would cause you pain, I discouraged you from following me. I see now that destiny has decreed you should dwell with me in the forest. Follow me then, O princess, and I shall protect you in strict accord with the moral laws always followed by the virtues. Ram made clear his firm intention to go to the deep forest and remain there for the full duration. He wanted Sita to have no doubt of what lay ahead. He was fixed in his determination to obey his parents' command. How could one who disregarded elders and teachers ever hope to please God, who is not so easily seen or obtained? Earth, heaven, and the kingdom of God can all be achieved by one who serves his mother, father, and teacher. Explaining all this to his devoted wife Sita, Ram said, "Not even truthfulness, charity, or sacrifice are comparable to saving one's father and mother. This is the eternal religion. Pious men devoted to saving their parents reach the regions of the gods and beyond that. I therefore desire to do exactly what my truthful father has enjoined." Dashrath Maharaj, "I shall go to the forest today as I see that you are set on following me. My resolve to leave you behind has weakened. O lady of bewitching eyes, I shall take you with me and together we shall practice asceticism in the deep forest. I am pleased with you, Sita. Your determination to save me in every circumstance is worthy of your dynasty and it adds glory to mine. Prepare to leave immediately. Give away all your riches to the Brahmins and go with only a simple dress and no belongings. We shall soon depart." Sita was overjoyed to hear her husband's agreement. Her face bloomed like a full-blown lotus. Excitedly, she began following Ram's instructions, giving away all her costly garments and jewels, as well as all the other riches in her palace. In the meantime, Lakshmana, who had been waiting patiently outside Sita's apartments, saw Ram coming out. He bowed down before Ram and held his feet tightly. "If your mind is set upon leaving for the forest, then take me with you," he implored. "I shall walk ahead of you, holding my bow and guarding against all dangers. With joy, I shall accompany you through beautiful woods, resounding with the cries of wild animals. Without you, I do not desire even the rulership of all the worlds." Lakshmana hoped Ram would approve, but Ram tried to dissuade him. "My dearest Lakshmana, you are dearer to me than life itself, always affectionate, devoted to virtue, and firm in the right path. You are my constant and most valued companion. Yet you follow me to the forest. Who will be left to save your mother Sumitra and the illustrious Kaushalya?" Ram suggested that Kaikeyi would not be kind to her co-wives once her son obtained the kingdom. Bharat would be devoted to his own mother, Kaikeyi, and thus the other queens would be neglected. Therefore, Lakshmana should remain in Ayodhya to care for Kaushalya and Sumitra. By saving Ram's elders, Lakshmana would demonstrate his devotion to Ram. Ram concluded incomparable. Lakshmana was not inclined to accept Ram's advice. How could he live without Ram? In soft but firm words, he argued that Bharata and Satrughna were both devoted to Ram. They would therefore save all of Ram's elders equally. Lakshmana promised his brother, if somehow they become proud and arrogant upon attaining the kingdom, abandoning virtue and neglecting their elders, I will return to punish them. For even while we live in the forest, news of the kingdom will reach us through the sages and ascetics living there. Lakshmana had already anticipated Ram's objections and had carefully considered them. There was no doubt in his mind that he should follow his brother. Continuing to reassure Ram, Lakshmana reminded him how the king had already arranged more than adequate support for Kaushalya and her dependents. The revenue of thousands of villages were under her control. She was capable of maintaining herself as well as Sumitra and even Lakshmana himself. He concluded, "Therefore, kindly make me your personal attendant, for there will be no unrighteousness in this act. Going before you with my sword, I shall clear a safe path for you and Sita. In wakefulness or sleep, you shall find me by your side, ever ready to do your bidding." Ram was pleased and comforted to hear Lakshmana speak. Lakshmana was as dear to him as his life itself, and Ram had been sad at the prospect of leaving him. Holding Lakshmana by the shoulders and looking into his expectant face, Ram said, "Take leave of your near and dear ones, O my brother, for we shall depart shortly." Lakshmana felt a surge of happiness and his limbs trembled. He bowed to his elder brother and asked for his order. Ram asked Lakshmana to go to Vasishtha's hermitage, where he had left some divine weapons. There were 2 celestial bows, along with a pair of inexhaustible quivers, 2 impenetrable pieces of body armor, and a pair of long shining swords. Ram had received this as a dowry from Janak Maharaj and had left them with Vasishtha Muni so they could receive daily worship in his hermitage. He said to Lakshmana, "Bring all these weapons, dear brother, for I feel we will have need of them soon." Lakshmana joyfully went and fetched the weapons. Then he and Ram together began to distribute their wealth to the Brahmanas. Many sages came at that time to offer their blessings to Ram, and all of them were given great riches: gold, silver, jewels, pearls, chariots, horses, silken garments, and hundreds of thousands of cows were distributed freely to anyone who came begging charity. Many thousands of Brahmins were given sufficient alms to maintain them for the rest of their lives. Ram's relations and dependents, as well as the needy and afflicted, were also given much wealth. At that time in Ayodhya, there was not a single Brahmin or needy person who was not provided with gifts. Being thus honored and gratified by Ram, they all returned to their own homes, praising him in their hearts. It was time for Ram and his 2 companions to say their farewells. Holding their weapons and followed by Sita, the brothers made their way towards Dasarath Maharaj's palace. As they passed along the road, many men crowded around to watch them. Plunged in sorrow at seeing their beloved prince leaving, they lamented in various ways. Here passes the Ram, same Ram who before would move regally in state. Followed by a huge retinue, said the people. Now he walks with only Sita and Lakshman as his companions. Although used to every luxury, he is going to the terrible forest in obedience to his father's words. Some citizens censured the king, whom they felt had been gripped by some evil spirit. How could he send his dearest son Ram into exile? Ram's qualities were evident to all. His compassion, learning, gentleness, self-control, and mental peace, all were ever visible in that noble prince. The citizens could not face the prospect of Ram's departure. They felt pain just as a tree with all its fruits and flowers is hurt when its root is damaged, and they spoke out in public places. We will give up our homes and villages and go with the pious Ram to the forests. Let us share with him all his joys and sorrows. Let Kaikeyi rule over a deserted kingdom, bereft of its people. Everyone feared the prospect of Kaikeyi becoming powerful as the mother of the king. They angrily cursed her again and again. All of them would go with Ram. They would abandon the city, leaving its houses to be filled with dust and overrun by mice. The forest would become a city and Ayodhya a forest. They would drive out from the forest all the fierce animals and snakes, sending them to live in Ayodhya with Kaikeyi as their protector. The two brothers heard the laments of the people, but they kept their minds under strict control, smiling gently and glancing with affection at the citizens. They walked together like a pair of powerful lions. They entered Dasarath Maharaja's palace and saw Sumantra, who stood with folded hands and a disconsolate face. Ram asked him to announce their arrival to the king. When Sumantra went before Dasarath, he found the king distracted by grief, heaving deep sighs, his eyes red from weeping. The devoted and faithful Sumantra regarded his master to be like the eclipsed sun or a fire covered by ashes. Bowing at the king's feet, Sumantra said the illustrious Ram had distributed all his wealth to his dependents and the Brahmins, and he now stands at your door awaiting your permission to depart for the forest. Ordering his minister to show Ram in, the king also asked that all his wives be present. Sumantra brought the queens, who arrived accompanied by numerous maidservants. He then brought Ram and Lakshmana before their father. As Ram entered the room, Dasarath ran impulsively toward him. But being stricken with sorrow, he fell senseless to the floor. Ram and Lakshmana rushed to assist their unconscious father. All the ladies threw up their arms and gave out a wail which mixed with the tinkling of their ornaments. A commotion filled the room with cries of Alas, 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 O Rama. Kaikeyi alone remained unmoved. Ram and Lakshman, both crying, lifted their father and placed him gently on a couch. As the king returned to consciousness, Ram regained his composure and with folded hands said, I have come to take leave of you. Father, please grant me your permission to go to the forests. Also allow Lakshmana and Sita, whom I could not deter even with great effort, to accompany me. O great king, please give up your grief and look favorably upon us, for we wish now to depart. Ram calmly awaited his father's permission. The king spoke with difficulty. As a result of a promise made to Kaikeyi, I have lost my good sense. Therefore, my dear Ram, take me captive and rule over this kingdom. Fixed in righteousness, Ram replied, May you rule the earth for another 1,000 years. I have no desire for sovereignty. After mere 14 years have passed, I shall return and once more take hold of your feet, having redeemed your pledge, O ruler of man. Dasarath Maharaj was mortified, but he saw Kaikeyi urging him on with covert gestures. Bound by the fetish of truth, he spoke to his son, granting him permission to leave. Please leave with an undisturbed mind, O Ram, and may your journey be a safe and happy one.